Creative Magic Club. What's up? This is Sarah Mack and welcome to Creative Magic Club. Together, we'll discover inspirational stories of creative entrepreneurs living out their dreams, doing the work they are most passionate about, and building wealth in magical and fun ways. While building a six-figure income as a writer and coach, helping other women to launch their dream businesses, I've connected with so many incredible people and seen it proven again and again that you can thrive financially doing whatever it is you are passionate about. I am here to share life-changing strategies for mindset, making money, and reaching more people with your work in a business and life filled with creativity, freedom, and fun. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode. I'm super excited to introduce my guest today, Christmas Hutchinson, who is a high energy executive coach and author of The Resilient Mind, a field guide to a healthier way of life. She's the host of the CHRISSYTV Podcast. She's passionate about helping high achievers take control over their critical voice to overcome imposter syndrome, to confidently achieve a fulfilling career as a means to find balance in all areas of their life. Hi, Christmas. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Super excited to dive in. So please tell us, what is your story? How did you end up doing this work today?
Well, my story is pretty interesting. I got into this work as a result of me having breast cancer and getting a divorce at the same time. I want to say this was around 6 years ago. And at that time, and I had just recently been passed over for a promotion. And at that time, I was like, oh my God, this is my rock bottom. Like I wasn't thinking that at that moment, but I was in a very, very low place. And when you get into a low place like that, you have a decision to make. Like, do you just feel like life is happening to you, or do you just take the steps to pull yourself out of the hole? And for me, it was a rock bottom because I was a box checker. Like I was married. I had to get married, before I was 30. I had to have a house. I had to have the career, had to get the MBA. Like I was just checking boxes because, we live in societies that tell us what status is. And usually status is like having a specific kind of job and money. And I got to this point in my life where I didn't have any of that. I had to focus on my health because if you can't get your health together, what is the rest of your life? What does it matter for the rest of your life? And so during that process, I did a lot of self-reflection to kind of figure out how I got to where I got. But one thing that kept coming up from people was that you're so resilient. You're so resilient. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, isn't that what everybody else is? And so what happened was after a while, like after maybe a year or two after it happened, I ended up moving to New York and I decided to write a book. And the book was The Resilient Mind, a field guide to a healthier way of life. And it was born out of me saying, look, I wish I had known these things when I was graduating from college, or even just before I went to college. And so that's kind of the first few steps that I took into just kind of getting into this resilience talk. And then I ended up becoming unofficial mentors to people in the area of career. And I know I had issues with my career in terms of imposter syndrome and having a stalled career. And I started to use some of my resilience things that I learned and that I share in my book on myself to be able to get over that imposter syndrome. And even, the different levels of it, like after, being an executive at a company and then like going out on my own, you still have imposter syndrome. And so I just started to see that when I was coaching people and whenever people would want to put me on panels, it always came to imposter syndrome. So I was like, okay, I got to talk about this.
That's amazing. Yeah, imposter syndrome is such a big topic that my community love to talk about and really resonates with them. So I'm super excited to hear your wisdom on that. Mm-hmm. And I really resonate with your story as well, because it was similarly to me. I didn't have cancer or anything like that, but I had a very severe burnout. And it was in that moment where, there were very real barriers to me succeeding that I had to deal with, that I feel like it's, like that's the gift in experiencing those struggles, is that you're like, well, I have to do the best with what I have. And then that's when you discover that actually you're so much more capable and more powerful than you ever thought you were. And these, even though they are like very real reasons that limit us, that actually they still don't necessarily need to stop us too, right?
Right, exactly.
So, okay, I'm curious about your book and the inspiration and those things that, I would say, like, what were like the top couple of like really key things, lessons that you learned that inspired you to start sharing this work?
The key things that I learned, and I always like, there's like 3 tools. So there's 15 tools, but there are 3 tools in that book. Like if you don't read any tool, and I'll just say, like, if you ever get the book, it's not one of those long reads. It'll take you, it's meant for you just to go and look at it, spend 5 minutes, digest it and move on. Like quick hits. I don't need to tell backstories about everything, but the 3 things that I think were the top things that I learned in that process was self-reflection. When you're growing up, nobody knows about self-reflection. When you get in trouble with your parents, they're like, why did you do that? And you're like, I don't know. But you're like, no, I wanted to have fun. You know what I mean? But you don't know. You just had some impulse to do it. But what I realized is that most of them is the decisions and choices that I made, I really never really reflected on them. It's like, okay, go get married. Why? Because everyone says that you have to be married at a certain age or else you're going to be too old and you're going to miss the mark. So I went through all this reflection to say, how in the world did I get here? Like, how did I end up divorced? How did I end up, stalled in my career? How did I end up with cancer? Like, what were the decisions that I made? And I really had to do deep self-reflection and really analyze and have some awareness around the choices I made. Like, what state of mind was I in when I made that choice? What fear was I running away from for me to make that choice? So I say self-reflection is one. Gratitude is what got me through the whole entire process of my burnout or, the downturn in my life, which, life is in cycles. I'll probably have another downturn. I mean, we've all had some troubles with the whole world being on lockdown. So gratitude is a big thing. Like I learned to make gratitude lists. I started off with creating a gratitude jar. When I was going through treatment, I would send people written letters thanking them for, caring about me and what they meant to me as friends. And that was number 2, like gratitude. That is something I always turn to. And that is something that I do on a daily basis. I don't like go crazy with it. Like I do 5 gratitudes a day, but there are days when, when life hits you, when you're just in a mood and I have to do like 20 because I have to bring myself to the present. Like everything's okay. And then the third tool is be you, do you. Like, don't worry about whatever anybody has to say about, how you live your life or how you want to live it. And for me, I felt like a lot of where I ended up in 2014 with the cancer diagnosis and all that kind of stuff was because I was making choices and decisions based on what I thought was expected of me, not because of who I am and what was in my heart. So those are like the top 3 tools.
I love them. Yeah, they're such simple concepts, but so powerful. And something that I've been thinking about recently that's really helped me is like when I catch myself when I'm in one of those moods and I'm like, the world is against me. And like, just the emotions that aren't the most pleasurable emotions to experience are happening. And, it's in those moments that I realize that self-reflection of like, I'm not being very good at gratitude right now. Like I'm dropping the ball on gratitude and like no judgment, no beat up. Like this is just the result of me not practicing this practice. And it's
absolutely,
and really like seeing it as a skill, just as like, if you want to be good at making money, then you get the skill of selling or like creating content in your business. And, you know, it's like, what is the skill that I'm either missing or I'm not practicing or I dropped the ball on or I just haven't been consistent with that's led me to a result that I don't enjoy. And then it's like, okay, cool. I just need to get back into practice with that skill rather than, you know, being like, oh, there's something wrong with me or like it's somebody else's fault. And just being like, okay, I get to choose again. What is it that I haven't been practicing that has not been supporting where I actually want to be, and just get back into that practice again.
Right. And you bring up a good point, and it is all about practice. The one thing that I find when I'm coaching people, they get to this point where they feel like they have reached the promised land and there's nothing more that they need to do. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, this is life. Like, it is always going to be practice, because there is going to be something that comes up that's going to put you back into a place. But now that you have these tools, you now can use them to the tools instead of like downward spiraling and ending up in depression and all these kinds of things. But it is a practice. And when you keep that mindset, you're able to be like, okay, what am I not practicing? What am I not practicing? And get back on it and be able to go about your life.
Totally. And I think that's such an important message, because I've been there too, where I've done all the money mindset work and like hit my income goals and I'm amazing. And then I can just like carry on living my life like before. And then I'm like, oh no, like this, like I got to that place because of these practices. And then it's maintaining those practices that maintains that higher level. And I was talking to one of my clients about this today. Like, I just think the teeth brushing analogy like really applies to all of these. It's like, if you don't just not brush your teeth and then get in a mood that you've got bad breath, or, you know, you want healthy teeth. So you brush your teeth every day and you just get good at brushing your teeth every day. Same thing with all these other practices. You want to be good at making money, get good at the skills that allow you to make money and practice them every day. If you want to, you know, be elevated and have a positive outlook on life and emotionally be in the place where you want to be, have the conversations, do the gratitude, do the practices, whatever it is that supports you to maintain that. And then like stop making it such a big deal and just get it done. These things don't need to take that much time. It's really the consistency of practice that gets to maintain that higher level and that higher standard of life.
Right. And I think it also is a mindset shift to understand that you are always going to be learning something. I think because we feel like, oh, I did K through 12 education, and if you went to college, then you did. Well, education stops from there. And I mean, you and I seem to have a similar mindset. You know, you're all over the internet finding online courses and stuff, like it doesn't stop. Like, it just is there's always going to be something that you learn. And if you're having difficulty in an area, that means you're not skilled at it, which means you have to go and figure out the skill.
Totally. And I think it's so important to disconnect the conversation of self-worth to your results. It's like, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. You just need to retool or reskill in a particular area. And if it's hard for you, that's okay. Just
right.
If you find someone who's good at it, who resonates with you, and join their program and get them to support you to get good at it. And it's really that simple. And I think that was one of the greatest gifts of my burnout, was I was like, I don't know what's going on with my emotions, with my body, with like my entire life. And I needed some answers. And I just, got really curious and started asking everybody for all of the help, because I knew I needed support.
Right.
And then I got better, and then from that place, I was like, oh, I get this. Cool. Like, what else isn't working in my life? Next thing for me was money. And then I asked everybody I knew and did everything that I could to, massively shift that. And it's so empowering to know that whatever you want, you can get it if you're willing to ask for help, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I would love for you to tell me a little bit about, like, what are your perspectives on imposter syndrome? Because I feel like, does everybody experience imposter syndrome? Surely it does. Surely that's what we're talking about, is that phase where like you want to be good at something, but you're not good at it. And you're going through that kind of like uncomfortable growth of reskilling and retooling in an area and stepping into really like owning or embodying a part of yourself that is a part of you that you haven't really fully expressed yet. Like, tell me your perspective. I can't wait to hear.
So my perspective on an imposter syndrome is I feel that most people have it. And it's really about the unknown. It's really about embracing the unknown. And to me, I feel like imposter syndrome is that feeling of stepping into something new and basically forgetting that you have all these skills and experiences that have brought you to this point. And somehow you convince yourself that in order to be at this point or to get to that next point, you need some sort of miraculous skills. And it's not that. And so what happens is you start to be hard on yourself, and your critical voice turns up and starts to say, oh, you need this, or you don't have enough of that. And then what could happen is you start to have like analysis paralysis, and you could spiral downward by saying, oh, I'm not good enough, and I did this wrong, and this person is going to figure out that I'm a fraud because of this. And instead of just kind of setting a baseline of saying, okay, I am a fully competent person. What got me here definitely is not going to take me there, but I have all of the skills inside of me to figure it out. And I really believe like that is what's going on in people's minds, and why the imposter shows up in unknown situations is that we have an expectation of getting it right the first time, and have an expectation of not failing, because if we fail, oh, God forbid, like the worst case scenario, everybody always worries about being homeless and not having food and all these things. And none of that will ever happen as long as you continue to take action. The moment you stop taking action is when you find yourself in that worst case scenario. If you do nothing, then you'll end up in that worst case scenario. But no, you're not going to just do nothing. And so I think that like that's really what is happening. And it could be debilitating. And if you don't catch yourself, you can really hold yourself back. Like even as an entrepreneur, I remember when I first started doing all this stuff, I have an MBA. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I've been an executive in a corporation. I've looked at major financial statements. I know this stuff. And when I got into entrepreneurship, there were like so many things I was missing, and I started to beat myself up. Then I was like, wait, this is your first time doing it. You don't know any of this stuff. So why did you expect that you should know it? So like, that's just where like what I feel about it. I can go into different thoughts of like how to handle it and how you have it and that kind of stuff too, if you want.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love that perspective. And the things that pop out to me from that is, especially in entrepreneurship, because it's the difference between, like, you have to have a beginner's mindset in entrepreneurship all the time, right? Because you do have to learn a lot of new skills, plus things are always changing, you're always adapting. A lot of the time, you're following your own inspiration, which is always shifting as you grow and you evolve. And I think a lot of the ways that we're brought up is, in this very kind of like linear, you take this step, then you take this exam, then you get this certification, then you're good enough, right? And so we are kind of like, we're used to creating these external ways of like validating our own worth and being like, oh, I'm not good enough until I've like got the same results that my teacher has, or, I've proven myself in these ways, versus like you're saying, really connecting to our own inherent worth and the fact that we've done all of the things that we've done. And even if they're different, even if you're shifting into something new, like you did a bunch of new things before and succeeded at it. So whatever allowed you to succeed at that is innately within you, and no one can take that away from you. And you can use that to succeed at the whatever else it is you want to succeed at next as well.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So I want to talk about entrepreneurship just a little differently, because I feel like when there's I don't want to say it's a different type of imposter syndrome, but I feel like the measurements are a little bit different or the worries, I should say. So when you're having imposter syndrome in your company, you're really worried about fitting into the culture. You're worried that you're doing it right and that somebody's not going behind your back and saying this person doesn't know what they're doing. And you could also develop it from being in situations like that. Cause I developed it by being in situations where I got fired and like nobody told me I was underperforming. So I started to like look over my shoulder, like, am I doing this right? But so there's that situation where you're like, you have the safety net of a company, and then you also are worrying about, do they like me? If I mess up, are they going to fire me? So you're always worried about, is there going to be continuity in that paycheck? And as a entrepreneur, especially like if you're doing work like the way we're doing work, you get that imposter syndrome by comparing yourself to other people. Like, oh, Marie Forleo has all these people in her group and all this kind of thing. And what I've learned is that you have to step into reality, because before I like fully went on my own, I was blogging and I was doing things like back in 2017 and like nobody knew who I was. And I remember just being like, oh my God, nobody read that one article that I wrote. You know what I mean? I'm not going to write another article because nobody's going to read it. And I'm comparing myself to people who've had all this internet success and this influencer success. Like nobody wants to hear from me. And I started to really be hard on myself. But what I wasn't thinking about is that it takes time. I mean, so now I was telling my friend this the other day, I have so much content. I have a lot of people who like to ask me for free advice. And so now I'm like, I have too much content out there. You can buy a book, you can listen to my podcast, you can go on Medium. Like, so when you're as an entrepreneur, I feel like the imposter syndrome is like this expectation that you're just like at the top of your game out the gates, and that it's going to take time. And when you're looking at these people on Instagram, like, oh, if you're a coach, I can make you $100,000 in 1 year or blah, blah, blah. All of that is BS. Like it takes time. Like, don't get me wrong. You could probably do that, but these $1 million years and everybody chasing billions is not real. And that will kill your self-worth.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's the comparison that kills people. And and I have to tell my clients this a lot. It's like, do a detox on who you're looking at and just really focus, stay in your own lane, because you're like, especially as an entrepreneur, your success rests on your creativity, like your ability to connect to your inspiration, your unique voice, your unique message, your desires for the work that you want to do, because ultimately those are going to be the things that are going to work versus you trying to copy somebody else or do something because somebody else proved it. And, you don't want to take a risk. And that's going to be the thing that's the most fun for you as well. And when we have all of these external inputs on how other people are doing it, or even just being in that conversation of like, oh, what's the point in me doing this? Because there's already so many other people out there
right
doing it. And those are just the killers of your creativity. And whereas if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and, all it takes is a handful of clients to have a successful business very often. And there's billions of people on this planet and it's growing every day. And yeah, like stay in your own lane, I think is really important. And particularly when in this world of social media where we're just like bombarded with other people's lives all the time, unless you have very just like conscious boundaries with that type of stuff. So what are some of like your top tips for overcoming imposter syndrome as an entrepreneur?
I'm going to tell you that, but one thing I wanted to say something about the social media. The thing that frightens me about social media, and I'm not sure if you've seen the HBO documentary called Fake Famous.
No, I haven't.
The thing about that frightens me is that a lot of people are having self-worth issues and are beating themselves up for not having a successful business when there are a lot of Instagram accounts that are fake. And what I mean by fake, they have fake followers, they have fake likes, they have fake pictures that are staged. And you're like literally hustling and doing your thing, and you're comparing to yourself to something that's not real. And so that's really scary to me. But Top things to get over imposter syndrome. So one of the main things I always recommend people to do is have a list of your achievements. I have one in the notes app of my phone. It is just basically a list of every accomplishment that I've had. I've actually used it. I've been in situations where I've been asked to do something that I've never been able to do. And like get a new client or whatever. And they're like, can you do this? And I'm like, and it's like add-on work. And you're like, I don't want to say no and what I do is to get past it, I go and look at all the things because, you forget, like humans forget easily. So I went back, I go back through all of the things and I'm like, oh, I did do that. Oh, I did do that. Oh, I'm the bomb. So keeping that list is very helpful. The second thing is always gather evidence. Usually when your thoughts and your critical voice is going wild, like, oh, this person isn't going to like me, or I'm not doing this right, or this is going to fail. What is the evidence? How do you know that? Where did you get that from? Is that real, or is that your critical voice trying to keep you safe? So you have to know the difference. Like what is this really going? And then also looking at fear. A lot of imposter syndrome has to do with fear. And so there's 3 types of fear. There's the fear of loss. So there's the fear of you taking a risk and losing something, like we talked about earlier, losing your home and losing your ability for security. And you don't want to feel that pain. So there's like the loss pain. There's the process pain. And so that's the fear that the challenge, the process is going to be too hard. But you've been there, you've done it, you've been through challenging things. I mean, no pain, no gain. Like that is life. There's going to be challenges. If there's a challenge, that means that there is growth, or depending on the challenge. If there's stress, challenge equals growth, stress equals figure out something is going on in your life that you need to change. And then there's the outcome pain. And that's really the pain that you're not going to get the outcome that you want. And so evaluating those things in a more realistic manner, because once you understand what you really fear, then you can say, oh, okay, this is not a big deal, or you can just take the next right action. And so also asking your questions about like what's doubting you, like, is this self-doubt really serving me? What is at the root of this self-doubt? And you'll start to find out that you don't want to be ashamed of it not working, because you don't want to have to tell your parents and your family and your friends that you failed at something. There's always these things that are underneath, and it's not just about you being afraid to put yourself out there. Usually as an entrepreneur, especially doing work that we do, is we're afraid of embarrassment, or we're afraid of some troll saying, what do you know about anything? And if you know about trolls, you're just a reflection of the troll, and they're nobody. You can ignore them. You can block them. They're just there to remind you that what you're doing is a good thing. And so if somebody's trying to tear you down, you're doing something right.
Amazing. That was like such a succinct summary of like what mindset work is. And mindset coaching.
Right.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this gold with us today. And tell us, for anyone who's interested in learning more about your work, what's the next step for them to find you?
So you can find me at CHRISSYTV.com, or you can follow me at RealChrissYTV on Instagram. And if you want to get more quick hit mindset work, you can go to the CHRISSYTV Podcast. It's on Google, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
Amazing. Thank you, Christmas, so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please subscribe, go and leave a 5-star review to support the show, and share it with anybody who you know needs to hear this. And thank you for watching. Bye. For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com And please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.